Thank you all for being here. We've been having a chat about today and, in truth, celebrating today. It's been a long, long time coming. We've literally been meeting and talking for years. Marcy Hamilton, who's been the attorney for the group, has done an extraordinary job. She's been working with Alfonso and Melissa for many, many years. This issue, the Child Victims Act, we have put in the budget every year. We've made it a priority every year. And at the end of the day, we were foiled by the conservatives in the Senate. I don't even believe it was the moderates in the Senate. I believe it was the conservatives in the Senate who were threatened by the Catholic Church. And this went on for years. And first, I want to start by applauding these victims/advocates who went through a horrendous violation in life and an aggravated defilement because it was a person in authority, a person who was supposed to be respected. And then they come to government, they come to society for justice, and for years they are denied, which actually compounds the injustice, because now it's a lack of admission. First thing people want is at least acknowledge what happened to me and acknowledge that it was wrong and make a statement that justice will be done. And it wasn't me, and it wasn't my fault, and a wrong was done to me, and take responsibility. That's the first step in many ways, is the acknowledgement. And when government says, no, I'm not going to pass this bill, it's heard as, I'm not going to acknowledge what you believe was the circumstance. And that actually aggravates it. I remember we were talking about this issue, and for me, I liken it to the marriage equality bill in a lot of ways. I used to say about the marriage equality bill, look, just so we're clear on this issue, for me, it's about the second word, not the first word. It's not about marriage. You make your own decision on marriage. For me, it's about equality. And it's the lack of equality that was galling and offensive about marriage equality. It was society's statement that we believe love between heterosexual couples is somehow more legitimate than love through a gay couple, etc. And that's what marriage equality was about. It was about that principle, that you were not accepting, you were demeaning LGBTQ people, and their love was not as legitimate as heterosexual love. Child Victims Act, yes, there's going to be court cases and a window and a look back, etc. But to me, that's all it means to the end. The end was do justice, acknowledge this, acknowledge the harm, acknowledge that I was a victim, acknowledge that the authority was abused. And it has taken us a number of years to get here, but we got here because of you and your tenacity. The delay, don't take personally. The conservatives in the Senate stopped a lot of socially progressive bills, and that's what you see passing now over these past few weeks. The Reproductive Health Act, they wouldn't pass. The DREAM Act, they wouldn't pass. Voting rights, they wouldn't pass. Gun safety, they wouldn't pass, which will be done tomorrow. Bail reform, criminal justice reform, they wouldn't pass. So these were just social progress issues that they philosophically, politically were opposed to. And now with the new election, you see it's like pulling the cork, and the dike has been released on these issues that everyone agreed but was stymied by the conservatives. Interestingly, it's the exact opposite of what's going on in Washington, right? Every one of these issues, the conservatives in Washington are going one way, New York State is going the other way. We did Reproductive Health Act, they want to overturn Roe v. Wade. We're going to do gun safety, they're going to be 100% pro-Second Amendment. We said DREAM Act for immigrants, they say build a wall. But the Child Victims Act was only one of those. I want to thank the Daily News, which I think has done the public an extraordinary service, the way they covered this and the way they stayed on it. I want to thank my team for Alfonso and for Melissa. I'm sure you felt this, but it was personal for them. And these are two people who, when an issue becomes personal, they are unstoppable. And they have a little bit of that sense of youth that I was talking about before, that they want it done tomorrow. And they really, there is no rationalization for delay. To the Catholic Church, I'm sorry about the situation. I'm not sorry about my position. I'm sorry they have taken the position they have taken. I'm a Roman Catholic. I had Catholic elementary school, Catholic high school, Jesuits in college. So it is a difficult situation. And as we were chatting, my father found himself in the same situation. But on this issue, I'll tell you the truth. I don't think I'm against the Catholic Church. I think the bishops may have a different position than the Pope, and I'm with the Pope. I quoted him at the State of the State, and Pope Francis could not be any clearer in his statement. I mean, he totally condemned the action, and I associate myself with Pope Francis on this issue. And I am proud to maintain that position. But to you, congratulations. You did it. You really did it. And we all applaud you. You've done a service to the state. You've done a service to the thousands and thousands of victims who couldn't bring themselves to step up the way you have. With that, I turn it over to Marcy Hamilton, Counselor Extraordinaire.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. I am Marcy Hamilton, and I'm a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and the CEO of Child USA. This is a historic day in the state of New York and a long overdue victory for justice, and well-deserved. The justice system turned its back on victims in the state of New York, one of the worst states in the country, and today that's going to change. Republicans were the reason for blocking the legislation. It literally took a blue wave to do the right thing by victims in the state of New York. We were very, very fortunate in the state of New York to have the support of Governor Cuomo. He has been with us every step of the way. He has been an unwavering champion of the Child Victims Act. We can attest to that. We've had many meetings with him. Alfonso and Melissa have been amazing, and we are very grateful to them. I work on these issues countrywide. In fact, I work on these issues globally. Governor Cuomo is the only governor in the United States who has publicly supported statute of limitations reform for child sex abuse victims before it was passed. Others have signed these bills, but Governor Cuomo has put it in the forefront and kept it in the forefront. That makes him a different leader, and for victims, someone who is the best that they could possibly hope for. Thank you, Governor Cuomo. Thank you for your leadership. In the end, this is about children. in the state of New York. What we hope is we'll find out who the hidden predators are. We'll see the shift of the cost of the abuse to the ones who caused it, and we're finally delivering justice to the children and the victims in New York. Thanks.
Well said, Marcy. Well said. Steve?
My name is Steve Jimenez. I'm a survivor, and I'm also on the board of USA Advocacy and one of the co-founders with Marcy and Catherine of New Yorkers Against Hidden Predators. First of all, I just have to really thank the other colleagues and friends here at the table. We have been working together for a really, really long time. And at the end of the day, I keep thinking it really did take a village to get this bill passed. There are many different aspects of the coalitions, and there are many activists and advocates who have been involved in this, but it's something that could only happen together. So I thank all of you just really, from a very deep place. When we first met with Governor Cuomo, he made a promise to us that he would see this through. And we felt the force of his conviction. And he's right when he says, we were a little impatient with the delays, but he has been absolutely true to his promise that he would see that there would be a path to justice for survivors in New York State. So we thank you profoundly for that. And Alfonso and Melissa, just meeting with you and your insight and your guidance through this whole process has been amazing. We didn't have that anywhere else. So the fact that we were able to talk with you brought us to the place where this bill is finally happening, so we thank you profoundly. I just want to comment on one thing Governor Cuomo said about being Catholic. I was an altar boy. My abuse happened at a Catholic elementary school in Brooklyn, but I was a really devout altar boy. I went to Georgetown University, which is a Jesuit school, and I too consider myself to be a Catholic. And this has been these last 12 years waging this battle has been so difficult because there have been moments along the way where there have been suggestions that those of us fighting for this, and there are a couple of others here at the table, Bob Hotzen, Nancy, Beth, Tim, that we have been called anti-Catholic. And nothing could be further from the truth. We have our very, very strong principles, moral and ethical principles, and one of those principles is truth, and truth is at the heart of this movement. And so, I just want to say that to the cardinal and the bishops, et cetera, that I agree with the governor that I will follow Pope Francis on this one.
Thank you very much. Catherine?
Yes. Well, thank you, Governor Cuomo, Alfonso, Melissa. Your leadership has been just amazing. It was always understood to me from the first time we met, June, almost 2.5 years ago, at 666, and that it was personal, that you saw our pain, you saw the justice that was needed. It was very clear that it was deeply felt by all of you, and that gave us hope. And in that meeting, I do remember you talking about your father a lot. And I want to share with you that my father adored your father. He talked about him all the time. And something that my father said to me that has stuck with me for a very long time and really helped me through this movement. He said to me, Catherine, the right thing to do is very often the hardest thing to do, but you do it anyway. And I feel like that's what we have done. You can't get to justice without truth, and you certainly helped us pave the way there. So I am eternally grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. That was beautifully said. And I think your father is right, and I see that more and more clearly in this position. You can't get to a resolution without the truth, and there are so many people and so many institutions that just don't want to hear the truth. They just don't want to hear it. They want to deny it. It never happened. It's unpleasant. It has bad consequences for me. But it starts with the truth. And that's why it starts with you. Because you can't get to the truth without people who are willing to come to the table and say, this is what happened to me. That was the essential truth that you were willing to tell. And that then became undeniable. And the only question was when truth would win. But truth will always win if you have the courage to state it and fight for it. Truth only loses when the institutions overwhelm it or people back away from the truth because it's too difficult. But you didn't do that. This does not happen but for you, period. And I know how things get done in this building. As I said, Kristen, it's my room. I just want to recall, because it's important for me, because those of us who are Catholics, it's not a pleasant position to have the Catholic Church criticizing you. But Pope Francis gives me comfort on this issue. The abuse of minors is an offense so brutal, the Church cannot remain indifferent to this. And the Church must punish such priests. And that includes to support the legal action. There is no other way out of this because it's a crime. No worse, it's leaving them alive but destroyed. The only sin, I believe, greater than abusing a child would be protecting those who abuse a child. That's my view of Catholicism and truth and justice. With that, we'll turn it over to members of the press. Any questions for my friends?
Governor, you mentioned the Catholic Church several times. Obviously, between this, RHA, agenda, there have been people calling for excommunication, although the Cardinal doesn't seem to want to go that far. Is there a path you can see to improve your relationship with Cardinal Dolan, with the Church, or do you think that's irreparably broken?
Ken, this is not a new issue for a governor named Cuomo. It's a sort of a second chapter. My father dealt with the same issues on choice more than anything else. And his point, and the point that is irrefutable, is his job is to interpret and make laws in civil society. These are laws that are not opinionated when it comes to religion. And we don't legislate religious beliefs. So you can be a Catholic and believe what you believe as a Catholic, and the law is a separate document, right? And a separate set of rules. And I understand the Catholic Church would like us to legislate their opinion, but you don't have Catholic leaders or Jewish leaders or Muslim leaders. You just have legal leaders who are to follow the law. So that's an ongoing situation. But on the Child Victims Act, I feel that I am wholly in line with what Pope Francis has said on this issue. And I understand the church bureaucracy's issue. There could be financial ramifications. There could be embarrassment. And that's more because of the way they handled the issue. But I don't think denial works in life, and I don't think denial by the Catholic Church is going to work here. There have been too many situations exposed. The record is too well founded. And that's why I think Pope Francis is not only correct in his interpretation of Christianity, but also his interpretation of the practicality of the situation. You cannot deny what happened. You cannot deny that there was significant abuse in the Catholic Church. You cannot deny that it was not handled appropriately. And you can't deny that people were hurt and damaged. And then the position they took, which was, well, we don't want to acknowledge and we don't want to participate in justice, aggravated it, in my opinion. It was the exact worst thing to do. Tell the truth. It's about the truth, right? Jesus Christ, his teachings were about the truth and about justice. Justice. Everything was about justice, social justice. That's not what the church did here. And that's what Pope Francis is trying to say we should do.
Governor, bouncing off of Pope Francis's words, should the criminal statute of limitations, should it have been raised higher than 28 in your opinion?
Well, look, there is, obviously Pope Francis didn't get into the statute of limitations, et cetera. Although I'm sure he could have if he wanted to. He just chose not to address that topic. You do need, the statute of limitations does have a practical purpose in that it does help ensure justice in some situations because you have witnesses, you have records, et cetera. So I think when you put the look-back window together with the 28 years old, yes, I think it does make sense.
As a lawyer, do you see any difficulties down the road of pursuing some of these lawsuits? I'm wondering, after the look back is over, someone who's much older going back, how do they say that if they didn't take advantage of the look back era, that they have a case to bring?
Well, legally, they have a case to bring. Your question is a good one because they'll say, well, why didn't you bring it last year when you had the look-back window? That may be weighed, it may not be weighed, but they have the legal right to bring the case. The legal problem is going to be the preparation and prosecution of the case and the defense of the case. I mean, that's going to be the challenge because it becomes very practical, right? You don't have records, you don't have recollections, people have died. You know, you may go back to the point before there were emails and telephone records. So that's a practical problem, but I understand that, and that's calculated into the legislation.
Just from a process point of view, do you expect to sign the legislation today, assuming the legislature does indeed pass it? And secondly, now that this is out of the budget negotiations, does that make the budget easier or less complicated to discuss?
None of the issues we have been doing over the past few weeks would make the budget harder. These were obvious issues that were just stopped by the state Senate for many years. So it's exactly the opposite. What we're doing now are issues that we agreed on. We agreed on reproductive health. We agreed on the DREAM Act. We agreed on Child Victims Act. We have agreed on gun safety, red flag bill. We agreed on criminal justice reform, bail, et cetera. Those are the bills that are now moving. We had agreed to all of those bills before. But for the Senate, they would have passed. So by definition, these bills could not make the budget negotiation harder because these were all easy from a political point of view with this new Senate because everyone had agreed on them. What's going to make the budget difficult is the budget, right? What's going to make the budget difficult is numbers have to add up. Speaking of fathers, my father loved to say legislators just don't like to say no. They just don't say no often. This budget, revenues are dropping. Health care is in crisis because of what happened in the federal government. And everybody wants to fund education, restore AIM. Yeah, and now the numbers have to add up. And that's a discipline that is undeniable. That's what's going to make it hard. Ethics reform is going to be hard. Lobbying reform is going to be hard. We have to do a new pay commission this year. That's going to be hard. So there are hard things in the budget. These were the easy ones.
I just wondered about the public schools and the public hospitals from a practical standpoint. Obviously, all these people here, have every right to bring their lawsuits, and if the schools are found that they owe people money, they need to pay it. But as a practical matter, who's ultimately responsible if, a public school goes bankrupt or a hospital? Would the state then have to make them whole?
No.
So what would happen? They would just close?
Yeah.
How do the kids go to school?
I'm assuming all of your premise, which I don't believe.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, no, I don't believe it. I don't believe it ever comes to that. There are no bankruptcies. But that was to the extent there was a rationale for not passing the bill until now, that was it. There were two rationales. The one you articulated, well, this will have serious financial consequences on some institutions, and how do we handle that? And the second was what I believe really drove it, which was the opposition of the Catholic Church, and don't underestimate the opposition of the Catholic Church. Politically, they are powerful, and excommunication is not a good thing. As far as, well, the public institutions, this would be a hardship for them to pay. Then they shouldn't have committed the crime. And you can't say to a victim, well, maybe you're right, but the price of justice is too high. That is so counter to everything we believe, and frankly, so offensive to hear, because it is an implicit denial of your liability. Okay, you were hurt, I get it, but the hardship would be too great to do justice. No, there's no hardship too great to do justice.
No. Governor, if I could just...
Well, let me ask, excuse me one second. On the signing of the bill, just so you can't say, which you will say anyway, but I can then call you and say you had no right to say. I will sign the bill. I would sign it at any time. I would like to speak to you guys and see if you want to do something special about the signing. Otherwise, if you want to do a separate ceremony or something, or a separate place, we could do that, or I could do it today, whatever works for you. Marcy, Catherine, Steve, anyone like to add anything?
If I could just clarify on the last point, this is the 10th state to adopt a revival statute, and no public school district has ever seen a large number of cases or been found to be bankrupt. The public schools were required to be mandated reporters long before anybody else. And of course, the governor just signed the bill that makes private schools in the state of New York mandated reporters. So the places to look for cases that have been covered up are the private schools.
They all went to private schools. That's why they were all worried now, Marcy. All right, thank you very much. Congratulations to all of you.